Other scientists using the instrument have kept her pretty busy.
You, of course, study black holes. Could you just give a brief description for those like myself who just have a hard time wrapping their heads around what a black hole is?
One way to think about a black hole is that it is a place where gravity is so intense that almost anything that comes close gets captured by the intense gravity. They are such strongly aggregated, dense clumps of matter. They're the end states of stars. So when stars burn out all their fuel, they explode and they can leave behind, if they started life as a pretty massive star, very compact objects. So for example, if the Earth were to behave like a black hole and have the intense gravity that a black hole has, we'd have to scrunch the entire Earth to the size of a penny. That's when that compact.
Wow.
And that's when its gravity would have the intensity of that of a black hole.
When we come back, a scientist who will use the Webb telescope to peer into black holes. When we return, more from this episode of The Big Take, a daily podcast from Bloomberg and iHeartRadio. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen. I'm Wes Kosova, and this is Bloomberg. Breaking news first.
Panic is spreading in the global markets about Silicon Valley Bank, the failed SVB bank, dragging down the sector.
You're a smaller bank in America. You're worried for a lot of reasons.
The FDIC says it will move to protect insured depositors of Silicon Valley Bank. I think there are going to be issues here for regulators to look at.
People are beginning to ask, will there be a white knight, and what bank is next?
For continuing coverage and complete analysis.
Today with Bloomberg 1130.
In the 1980s and 90s, John McAfee was a Silicon Valley icon. But after he sold his company and basked in his riches, things took a dark turn.
I will not allow them to imprison me and shut my voice down.
This season on Foundering, we'll retrace the life of John McAfee. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Bloomberg Invest returns to London on March 22nd, gathering leading financial thinkers in investing to identify the biggest risks and greatest opportunities facing economists, money managers, and influential investors in the region. From traditional investment tools to crypto to alternative assets, how should we put our money to work? Join to hear from executives from Blackstone, Quantum Light, and Sotheby's. Learn more about Bloomberg Invest, strategies for wealth creation at bloomberglive.com/investradio.
We're talking about people pedal their bikes. Intervals. Burn. Come on, burn. Woo!
Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5 with a 261 horsepower engine that'll take you 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. Always obey local speed and traffic laws.
Don't let someone else drive off in the Audi model you've always wanted. Visit your tri-state area Audi dealer to get behind the wheel of yours today, or visit AudiOffers.com for more information.
Today, nearly all business is international business. The same goes for business disputes. That's why the International Center for Dispute Resolution provides a faster, more efficient approach to dispute resolution across borders. Backed by the American Arbitration Association, the ICDR is the world's leading provider of dispute resolution services. Find out why global expertise matters. Visit ICDR.org.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Becoming partly cloudy tonight, low down near 30 degrees. Tomorrow, morning sunshine with increasing afternoon clouds, high near 45. Tomorrow night, cloudy with showers developing after midnight, low about 35. Monday, rain likely and a high 45. And for Tuesday, windy with rain, maybe changing to snow north and west of the city, high 45. That's your Bloomberg 3-day weather forecast. I'm Susanna Palmer. Now let's get a check of Bloomberg Sports.
Third round of the Players' Championship, Scotty Scheffler has a one-shot lead at 11 under. The Knicks, coming off 2 straight losses, continue their 4-game road trip against the LA Clippers. The Nets play in Denver on Sunday. NHL, the Rangers skate in Buffalo. The Islanders host Washington, while the Devils play in Montreal. Over to the NFL, the Bears trade the top overall pick to the Panthers for 4 draft picks and receiver DJ Moore. And Patriots safety Devin McCourty has retired after 13 NFL seasons. That's the Bloomberg Sports Update. I'm Joel Oyster.
You're listening to the Big Take Podcast on Bloomberg Radio. I'm Wes Kosova. Today, we're talking about new advances in space technology. Today, we're talking about two significant advances in science and technology that may not sound related, but they are. The first is probably familiar. It's the James Webb Space Telescope that's been beaming back these incredibly detailed images from galaxies far, far away. The other may be less familiar. It's NASA's SWAT mission. That's a satellite that uses something called remote sensing to take detailed measurements of the planet's surface water and ocean topography. So, SWAT. Together, these two things represent a leap in our ability to access space to gather vast amounts of data about the status of our planet right now and to look back in time and into the future. That's useful not just for pure science and discovery, but to make decisions about our everyday lives. Let's jump right in with the James Webb Space Telescope. And to do that, I have the help of my colleague, Lauren Grush, who's on the space beat for Bloomberg. To hear more about the kind of data that's come in from the Webb telescope so far, Catherine checked in with Dr. Priyamvida Natarajan. She's an astrophysicist who studies black holes. Her team has been awarded time with the telescope later this year, and already all these new discoveries from other scientists using the instrument have kept her pretty busy.
You, of course, study black holes. Could you just give a brief description for those like myself who just have a hard time wrapping their heads around what a black hole is?
One way to think about a black hole is that it is a place where gravity is so intense that almost anything that comes close gets captured by the intense gravity. They are such strongly aggregated, dense clumps of matter. They're the end states of stars. So when stars burn out all their fuel, they explode and they can leave behind, if they started life as a pretty massive star, very compact objects. So for example, if the Earth were to behave like a black hole and have the intense gravity that a black hole has, we'd have to scrunch the entire Earth to the size of a penny. That's when that compact.
Wow.
And that's when its gravity would have the intensity of that of a black hole.
So what is a typical day like as someone who researches black holes? Is there a typical day?
There is no typical day. In particular, with James Webb right now, I'm looking for any new findings about distant black holes. Where James Webb has imaged some fantastic nearby black holes, two galaxies that harbor black holes in their inner regions are very, very dusty. So, James Webb has been able to cut through right into the heart of this galaxy, look at the dust, and given us a really clearer view than we've ever had before. And so we can actually see the impact of the black hole in the region around. So matter falls into the black hole, and some portion of the rest mass energy of the matter that is swirling in gets converted into radiation. So that heats up in the vicinity of the black hole. So these were all sort of, theoretically we had worked this all out, and James Webb, JWST, is actually revealing all the sort of ionized hot gas that we expected, but now we're actually seeing it really up close. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so you mentioned the distant black holes. What would those tell us if we're able to get data from the telescope versus the ones you just talked about?
Well, the distant black holes, obviously the question is of the origin, right? Where did the first black holes come from? James Webb has the capacity to look back into the infant universe and actually reveal the presence and catch the first black holes in action. So we don't quite know how the first black holes grow, whether, we think that the end states of stars could produce the first lot of black hole seeds. But there are also other physical mechanisms. So people like me and many other researchers have proposed direct formation, bypassing the formation of a star and just forming a black hole just from the gas, just, in the early universe, is so violent that you can actually condense a lot of gas very rapidly and make a seed black hole that is much more massive, much bigger than the ones you could get from the end states of stars. So I think what the first black holes really are, how they grow, because we believe that the black hole is the center of our own galaxy, right? The Milky Way has a black hole at its center that is 4 million times the mass of the sun. It's like wanting to see the picture of an infant when we see the picture of the fully grown adult or the aging person, right? So we want all the intermediate snapshots to build the sort of life history of how a black hole would form and grow. But meanwhile, what is super exciting is that James Webb has revealed the presence of early galaxies, many more galaxies in the early universe than we expected, and out much earlier in the universe. So it's like the clock of when things start, all the action starts in the universe, as it were, with stars forming, and seems like suggestions are that probably the clock is starting a lot earlier than our current theories led us to believe. So that would be super exciting. That would be radical. James Webb is also transforming our view of the nearby universe. So, for example, there's a first observation of an Earth-sized exoplanet system and its atmosphere. And that is just like awesome. We've never been able to do that, right? So remember, this just opens the door for studies of the composition of these atmospheres. And, it leads us to ponder some of the really big questions, right? Are there any atmospheres that are similar enough to ours or have the kind of composition that could support some kind of life, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of opening the window, even in the very nearby universe, with sort of radical observations.
Lauren, coming back now from black holes in the depths of space to something a little closer to home, NASA is at work on any number of missions. What is NASA doing right now that excites you?
NASA is trying to go back to the moon after all of this time, and this time they're trying to do it a little differently. So a few years ago, they officially named their Artemis program for the effort, and Artemis is a great name for it because she's the twin goddess of Apollo in Greek mythology. And the purpose of Artemis is actually to send the first woman and the first person of color to the moon. So that will be great in terms of its own historical significance. But it also differs from Apollo in that NASA really is trying to go back to the moon this time to stay. So rather than just sending, a couple of astronauts to the moon at a time to collect samples and leave footprints, that's their motto. It's no longer flags and footprints. They're looking to go sustainably. So creating infrastructure in and around the moon that will allow humans to live and work there long term so that we have a sustainable presence up there. It's an extremely ambitious endeavor, but I think it's what we're ultimately working towards when it comes to our space exploration goals. Is how do we improve upon the major achievements that we've done in the past? And so that's what I'm really excited to see. And what I'm also excited about is this program seems to have some staying power, more so than other ambitious programs have had in the past. This isn't the first time that we've tried to go back to the moon again, or even go onto Mars, but when it comes to administration changes, things can get wiped away, but this one survived an administration change, so hopefully it will survive another, and it would be great because that's how we make impressive things in space happen. They take a while, longer than 4 years of presidency. So I'm very excited about that, and I'll be following it as long as I am reporting on space.
We'll return to Earth when we come back. I'm Wes Kosova, and this is Bloomberg.
Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is New York's only 24-hour source for breaking news and market-moving headlines. Bloomberg 1130. Now, a global news update.
At least 2 people are dead as flooding intensifies in California. As Steve Patterson explains, a weather phenomenon known as the Pineapple Express is funneling subtropical moisture in from the Pacific.
This is one of 2 atmospheric rivers that we're expected to get. The second one coming on Monday, bringing even more precipitation to areas that do not need it at all.
Severe flooding is prompting a state of emergency in central California. Thousands are under evacuation orders and several communities remain isolated by high water. Former Trump attorney Michael Cohen is expected to testify before a Manhattan jury next week. Court observers say it's a sign that prosecutors are close to indicting the former president over hush money paid to a porn star who said she had an affair with Trump. 2-time Olympic gold medalist alpine skier Michaela Schifrin now holds the record for all-time World Cup wins. Her historic 87th win arrived in Sweden Saturday, breaking a 34-year record. That's the latest. I'm Julie Ryan.
And I'm Susanna Palmer in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Nearly 46 New Jersey nurses are getting their licenses revoked. Following a federal investigation, 20 nurses will have their licenses